Life does not ask us for permission before it tests us. Situations arrive unannounced, some gentle, others harsh, some joyful, others deeply painful. What truly defines us is not what happens, but how we respond when it happens. Two people can face the same storm, yet one emerges broken while the other emerges stronger. The difference is not strength, intelligence, or luck. The difference is reaction. Many of our regrets are not caused by the situation itself, but by the way we reacted in the heat of the moment. A word spoken without thought, an action driven by anger, a decision made in haste. These moments often shape consequences that last far longer than the situation that triggered them. This is why learning how to react is one of the most powerful life skills a human being can develop. Discipline is not about suppressing emotions. It is about guiding them. Emotional control is not weakness. It is strength of the highest level. Anyone can shout when angry, complain when tested, or panic when pressured, but it takes inner strength to remain calm when provoked, patient when delayed, and respectful when disrespected. Every situation carries a hidden question. Will this moment control you, or will you control yourself? When we train ourselves to pause, to reflect, and to respond with wisdom rather than impulse, we protect our peace, our dignity, and our future. The world may not change for us, but when we change how we react, everything changes for us. Today, this message is simple but powerful. You cannot always choose what happens to you, but you can always choose how you respond. And that choice can elevate you or destroy you. Awareness before reaction is the quiet pause that separates wisdom from regret. Most people believe reactions are automatic, that emotions rise and actions follow without permission. But in reality, there is always a small space between what happens and how we respond. That space is awareness. It is the moment when you notice what you are feeling, why you are feeling it, and what is truly happening beyond your immediate emotion. Without awareness, reactions are driven by habit, ego, fear, or past wounds, rather than truth. With awareness, even the most intense situations can be met with clarity instead of chaos. Many problems in life are not created by events themselves, but by unconscious reactions to those events. A harsh comment, a delay, a loss, or an unexpected challenge can trigger anger, anxiety, or sadness. Yet these emotions often rise from assumptions rather than reality. Awareness allows you to step back and ask yourself what exactly has happened and what meaning you are attaching to it. Is the situation truly an attack, or is it simply discomfort? Is it a disaster or just an inconvenience magnified by emotion? When awareness enters, exaggeration leaves and perspective begins to return. True awareness starts internally. Before looking at the situation, you look at yourself. You notice the tightening in your chest, the rush in your thoughts, the urge to speak or act immediately. Instead of obeying that urge, you observe it. This observation weakens the emotion's control over you. The emotion may still exist, but it no longer dictates your behavior. You begin to understand that emotions are signals, not commands. They are meant to inform you, not control you, and awareness is what allows you to read those signals correctly. When awareness is absent, people often react based on past experiences rather than present reality. A person who's been hurt before may assume harm even when none is intended. Someone who has been ignored in the past may react defensively to silence. Awareness helps separate the present moment from the shadows of the past. It reminds you that not every raised voice is disrespect, not every delay is rejection, and not every difficulty is a punishment. By becoming aware of these internal patterns, you stop punishing today for what happened yesterday. Awareness before reaction also protects relationships. Many conflicts escalate not because the issue is serious, but because reactions are careless. A single sentence spoken without thought can undo years of trust. When you pause to become aware, you give yourself the chance to choose words that heal instead of harm. You begin to respond rather than react. And there is a vast difference between the two. Reaction is impulsive and emotional, while response is intentional and thoughtful. Awareness is the bridge between emotion and wisdom. Another powerful aspect of awareness is recognizing what is within your control and what is not. Often, frustration comes from trying to control outcomes, people, or situations beyond your reach. Awareness gently reminds you that you cannot control everything that happens, but you can control your interpretation and your response. This realization brings peace. When you stop fighting reality and start understanding it, your reactions naturally soften. You conserve energy that would otherwise be wasted on anger and redirect it toward patience and problem solving. Awareness also brings humility. It allows you to admit that you may not have all the information, that your first impression may be incomplete, and that your emotions may not be entirely justified. This humility does not weaken you, it strengthens you. It opens the door to learning and growth. When you are aware, you listen more, assume less, and judge slowly. You realize that silence can be more powerful than speech, and restraint more impactful than retaliation. Practicing awareness is not a one-time effort. It is a discipline built through consistency. It grows when you make it a habit to pause before speaking, to breathe before reacting, and to reflect before deciding. Over time, this practice reshapes your character. Situations that once provoked intense reactions begin to lose their power over you. You do not become emotionless. You become emotionally intelligent. You still feel, but you are no longer enslaved by what you feel. In moments of pressure, awareness reminds you of something essential. This moment will pass, but the consequences of your reaction may remain. A calm response preserves dignity, faith, and self-respect. An uncontrolled reaction may satisfy the ego briefly, but often leaves regret behind. Awareness places long-term peace above short-term emotional release. And when a person consistently chooses awareness before reaction, their life begins to reflect stability, maturity, and inner strength that is not shaken by every passing storm. Control over impulse is the ability to pause when every part of you wants to act immediately. It is the strength to resist the urge to speak, react, or decide in the heat of emotion. Impulses are powerful because they arise suddenly and feel urgent, convincing us that action must be taken right now. Yet most mistakes in life are not made because we lack knowledge, but because we surrendered to impulse. When emotions take the steering wheel, wisdom is pushed aside, and the consequences often arrive quietly later in the form of regret. Every human being experiences impulses. Anger pushes us to lash out. Fear urges us to escape. Pride demands immediate defense, and desire whispers promises of instant relief. These impulses are natural, but obeying them blindly is not. True self-mastery is not about eliminating impulse. It is about choosing not to be ruled by it. The strongest individuals are not those who feel nothing, but those who feel deeply and still choose restraint. Control over impulse transforms raw emotion into guided energy rather than destructive force. One of the greatest illusions impulse creates is the belief that reacting will bring relief. In moments of anger, shouting feels satisfying. In moments of frustration, harsh words feel justified. In moments of temptation, immediate indulgence feels rewarding. Yet this relief is temporary, while the damage can be lasting. Control over impulse teaches patience, and patience protects the future. When you delay reaction, clarity often replaces confusion, and solutions appear where chaos once dominated the mind. Impulse thrives in speed, while discipline lives in delay. The moment you slow down, impulse weakens. A deep breath, a moment of silence, or a brief pause can interrupt emotional momentum. That pause is not weakness, it is power. It is the moment when you reclaim authority over yourself. You begin to realize that not every thought deserves expression, and not every feeling requires action. Some emotions are meant to pass, not to be obeyed. Control over impulse also safeguards dignity. Many people lose respect not because they are wrong, but because of how they express themselves when emotions flare. An uncontrolled reaction can lower a person's standing instantly, even if their position was valid. Discipline ensures that truth is delivered with wisdom and correction is offered with mercy. When impulse is restrained, communication becomes purposeful rather than reactive, and strength is expressed through composure instead of aggression. Another critical aspect of impulse control is its connection to long-term success. Impulses often favor immediate comfort over lasting benefit. Skipping responsibility feels easier than facing it. Responding angrily feels easier than remaining patient. Giving up feels easier than persevering. Yet progress is built on delayed gratification. Those who learn to resist impulse gain the ability to stay focused on goals despite discomfort. They understand that temporary restraint leads to lasting reward. Impulse control also nurtures emotional stability. When a person reacts to every trigger, their emotional state becomes dependent on external events and people. A single comment can ruin their mood, and a minor setback can shake their peace. Control over impulse restores inner balance. It allows a person to remain steady even when circumstances are unstable. This steadiness is not indifference. It is emotional maturity. It is the calm confidence that comes from knowing that your inner world is not easily hijacked by outer chaos. In relationships, impulse control is a form of mercy. Words spoken in anger can wound deeply, often beyond repair. Silence in such moments can be an act of protection rather than avoidance. Choosing not to react immediately creates space for understanding and reconciliation. Any conflicts resolve themselves when impulse is restrained, because time reveals what emotion hides. By controlling impulse, you give relationships a chance to survive moments of tension rather than be destroyed by them. Learning control over impulse is a continuous journey. No one masters it overnight, and everyone stumbles along the way. Each time you resist an impulsive reaction, even briefly, you strengthen self-discipline. Over time, this discipline becomes part of your character. Situations that once provoked immediate reactions begin to feel manageable. You become known not for explosive responses, but for calm judgment and thoughtful action. Ultimately, control over impulse is an act of self-respect. It is the decision to value your character more than momentary emotion and your future more than immediate satisfaction. When you master this control, you are no longer at the mercy of your impulses. You become the one who directs them, shaping your responses with intention, wisdom, and strength that quietly commands respect. Wherever you go, perspective in pressure is the ability to see clearly when circumstances are heavy and emotions are intense. Pressure has a way of narrowing vision, making problems appear larger than they truly are, and reducing life to a single painful moment. When pressure builds, the mind often jumps to extremes, convincing a person that this difficulty defines their entire existence. Perspective gently reminds the heart that this moment is a part of life, not the whole of it, and that every challenge, no matter how overwhelming it feels, exists within a much larger picture. When people lose perspective under pressure, they often interpret hardship as a sign of failure or abandonment. They begin to question their worth, their direction, and even their purpose. Yet pressure is not always a sign that something is wrong. Often it is evidence that something is being shaped. Just as pressure forms strength, clarity, and resilience, life's trials refine character and reveal inner capacity. Perspective allows a person to recognize that discomfort does not mean destruction, and delay does not mean denial. One of the greatest benefits of perspective is that it transforms pressure from an enemy into a teacher. Without perspective, pressure feels cruel and unnecessary. With perspective, it becomes meaningful. A person begins to ask not why this is happening in despair, but what can be learned with humility. This shift in mindset changes the emotional experience of hardship. The situation may remain difficult, but the heart becomes steadier because it understands that growth often hides within struggle. Perspective also protects against hopelessness. In moments of pressure, it is easy to believe that things will never change. The mind replays worst-case scenarios and magnifies uncertainty. Perspective reminds us that life moves in cycles, that ease follows hardship just as hardship follows ease. Every pressure-filled season in the past eventually passed, even when it felt endless at the time. Remembering this truth gives strength to endure the present, because it anchors the heart in hope rather than fear. Another essential aspect of perspective in pressure is recognizing what truly matters. When pressure increases, trivial concerns fall away and priorities become clearer. Perspective helps a person distinguish between what is urgent and what is important. Not every problem deserves equal emotional investment. Some issues require patience rather than panic, acceptance rather than resistance. By maintaining perspective, a person avoids exhausting themselves over matters that will hold little significance in the long run. Pressure often tests faith, patience, and character simultaneously. Without perspective, these tests feel unbearable. With perspective, they are seen as opportunities to rise rather than reasons to collapse. A person who maintains perspective understands that strength is not proven in comfort, but in endurance. Calmness under pressure becomes a sign of inner maturity, not because the individual feels no stress, but because they refuse to let stress define their response. Perspective also reshapes the way people view setbacks. Failure under pressure can feel final, but perspective reveals it as temporary. Many successes are built upon moments of intense pressure that forced reflection, correction, and perseverance. When perspective is present, a setback becomes feedback rather than defeat. It becomes a signal to adjust, not a verdict to quit. This understanding keeps a person moving forward even when progress feels slow or uncertain. In relationships, perspective during pressure prevents unnecessary damage. Stress can cause people to speak harshly, assume intentions, or withdraw emotionally. Perspective encourages compassion, reminding us that others may also be struggling silently. It softens judgment and invites patience. When pressure is shared, rather than fought alone, its weight becomes lighter. Perspective helps a person respond with empathy instead of blame, preserving bonds that might otherwise fracture under stress. Maintaining perspective in pressure also requires trust in timing. Not everything is resolved immediately, and not every answer is revealed at once. Pressure often demands patience, teaching a person to remain steady while waiting for clarity. This waiting is not wasted time, it is preparation. Perspective reassures the heart that unseen progress is still progress, and that growth does not always announce itself loudly. As perspective deepens, pressure loses its power to intimidate. The situation may still be difficult, but it no longer feels overwhelming. A person learns to carry pressure without being crushed by it, to face uncertainty without panic, and to move forward without losing hope. Perspective turns trials into chapters rather than conclusions, allowing a person to walk through pressure with dignity, resilience, and a quiet confidence that this moment, like all others, has a purpose beyond what the eyes can immediately see. Dignity in response is the art of preserving character when circumstances tempt a person to abandon it. Life often presents moments where reacting harshly feels justified, where responding with anger seems deserved, and where lowering oneself appears to be the easiest option. Yet dignity is revealed not when things are easy, but when provocation is strong. It is the decision to rise above the situation rather than sink into it, to protect one's values even when emotions demand otherwise. A dignified response does not mean silence in the face of wrongdoing or passivity in the presence of injustice. It means choosing a response that aligns with integrity rather than ego. Many people confuse dignity with weakness, assuming that calmness signals surrender. In reality, dignity requires immense inner strength. It takes courage to remain respectful when disrespected, patient when misunderstood, and composed when provoked. This strength does not shout, it speaks quietly through self-control. When dignity guides a response, it shifts the focus from winning the moment to preserving the self. Anger seeks victory over others, while dignity seeks victory over the ego. A harsh reply may satisfy pride temporarily, but it often leaves behind regret and damaged relationships. A dignified response, even when firm, leaves peace in the heart and respect in the eyes of others. It allows a person to walk away from a situation knowing they did not compromise who they are. Dignity also influences how words are chosen. Words can heal or harm, unite or divide, elevate or degrade. In moments of tension, dignity filters speech through wisdom. It asks whether the words being spoken will bring benefit or simply release emotion. This careful consideration does not suppress truth, it delivers truth with grace. When dignity is present, communication becomes purposeful rather than reactive. And even difficult conversations can be handled without humiliation or hostility. Another powerful element of dignity in response is restraint. Not every insult requires a reply, and not every provocation deserves attention. Sometimes dignity is expressed through silence, not because one has nothing to say, but because saying nothing preserves peace. Restraint frustrates those who seek reaction and protects the one who practices it. Choosing not to engage in negativity is not avoidance, it is self-respect. Dignity in response also protects reputation. People may forget what was said during a conflict, but they rarely forget how someone behaved. A single undignified reaction can overshadow years of good character, while a calm and respectful response can elevate a person standing instantly. Dignity builds trust and credibility, showing others that this is someone who can be relied upon even in difficult moments. In times of injustice or unfair treatment, dignity becomes a shield. It allows a person to stand firm without becoming bitter. Responding with dignity does not mean accepting mistreatment. It means addressing it without becoming consumed by anger. It is the balance between assertiveness and humility, between firmness and compassion. This balance prevents the heart from hardening and keeps the soul light even under strain. Dignity also nurtures inner peace. When a person reacts in a way that aligns with their values, they experience a sense of calm, regardless of the outcome. Even if the situation does not resolve immediately, there is comfort in knowing that character was preserved. This inner peace is priceless because external victories mean little if they are achieved at the cost of self-respect. In relationships, dignity strengthens bonds. Disagreements handled with respect deepen understanding rather than causing division. A dignified response reassures others that even in conflict, there is safety and fairness. It creates an environment where issues can be addressed without fear of humiliation or emotional harm. Over time, this approach builds relationships rooted in trust and mutual respect. Choosing dignity is not always easy, especially when emotions are high. It requires practice, patience, and constant self-reflection. There will be moments of failure, but each effort strengthens the habit. Over time, dignity becomes a natural response rather than a forced one. The individual no longer needs to prove themselves through loud reactions, because their calm presence speaks louder than any argument. Ultimately, dignity in response is a reflection of inner discipline and emotional maturity. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are and refusing to let circumstances redefine you. When dignity guides reactions, a person remains steady in chaos, respectful in disagreement, and noble in conduct, leaving behind an impact that is remembered, not for noise or aggression, but for strength, wisdom, and grace that stands firm regardless of the situation. Growth through discipline is the quiet transformation that happens when a person chooses consistency over comfort and principle over impulse. Discipline is often misunderstood as restriction, but in reality it is liberation. It frees a person from being controlled by moods, circumstances, and temporary desires. Through discipline, reactions become refined, behavior becomes intentional, and character becomes stable. Every situation, whether pleasant or painful, becomes a training ground where the self is shaped rather than shattered. True growth does not occur by chance. It is cultivated through repeated, conscious effort. Discipline is what turns intention into action and values into habits. When a person commits to disciplined responses, they stop reacting based on how they feel in the moment and start responding based on who they want to become. This shift is powerful because it places growth above gratification. The disciplined individual understands that progress often feels uncomfortable, but that discomfort is a sign of development, not failure. One of the greatest roles of discipline is teaching consistency in behavior regardless of circumstances. Without discipline, people are kind only when things are easy, patient only when life is smooth, and calm only when there is no pressure. Discipline trains the self to remain steady even when emotions fluctuate. This steadiness is what builds reliability and trust, both internally and externally. A disciplined person does not change character based on the situation. They bring character into every situation. Discipline also transforms mistakes into lessons rather than sources of shame. Growth-minded discipline does not demand perfection. It demands reflection and improvement. When a disciplined person reacts poorly, they do not justify the behavior or blame others. Instead, they analyze the response, recognize the weakness, and commit to doing better next time. This cycle of awareness, correction, and consistency fuels long-term growth and prevents stagnation. Another powerful aspect of discipline is its ability to strengthen emotional resilience. Life is unpredictable and challenges are unavoidable. Discipline equips a person with the tools to face difficulty without collapsing under pressure. It teaches patience during delays, restraint during provocation, and perseverance during hardship. Over time, disciplined responses build emotional endurance, making future challenges easier to handle because the inner foundation has already been strengthened. Discipline also aligns actions with purpose. Many people know what is right, but struggle to act accordingly when emotions interfere. Discipline bridges this gap. It ensures that values are not abandoned during moments of stress or temptation. When discipline is present, decisions are guided by long-term vision rather than short-term emotion. This alignment creates a sense of direction and meaning as actions begin to reflect deeper intentions rather than momentary feelings. Growth through discipline also fosters self-respect. Each time a person chooses restraint over reaction and patience over anger, they reinforce trust in themselves. They prove that they are capable of control and wisdom. This self-trust builds confidence, not the loud kind that seeks validation, but the quiet kind that comes from inner stability. A disciplined person does not need external approval because they are at peace with their own conduct. In relationships, disciplined behavior creates safety and consistency. People feel secure around someone whose reactions are measured and whose emotions are not unpredictable. Discipline reduces unnecessary conflict and encourages understanding. It allows difficult conversations to happen without emotional harm and disagreements to be resolved without resentment. Over time, this disciplined approach deepens connections and strengthens bonds, built on respect rather than fear. Discipline also teaches patience with the process of growth itself. Change does not happen overnight, and discipline accepts this reality. It encourages persistence even when progress seems slow. Each disciplined response may feel insignificant on its own, but collectively they shape a powerful transformation. Like drops of water carving stone, consistent discipline gradually molds character in ways that sudden effort never could. Ultimately, growth through discipline is about becoming the best version of oneself through conscious effort and moral commitment. Is choosing to be guided by wisdom rather than emotion, purpose rather than impulse, and integrity rather than convenience. Every situation becomes an opportunity to practice this discipline, to refine reactions, and to strengthen character. Through this process, growth becomes inevitable. Not because life becomes easier, but because the individual becomes stronger, calmer, and more grounded with each disciplined choice they make.